All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first meeting of 2021 for the Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition. It's our annual member meeting. With that, we have kind of our normal business items for the annual meeting, which is to elect our executive board members and then approve our budget. And then we will go over, actually we're going to turn things over for our presentation for the Plainfield Riverfront Plan, and then go over kind of some of the activities that we've been working on over the past year and what some of the things are coming up for 2021, overviewing some of our outreach, things that we have available right now for winter, as well as a little bit on our pet waste campaign. So if I can get a show of hands, let me pull up my participant list. Oops, sorry. There we go. Sorry, I was just trying to get my list of participants up. So I have Joe Slavnik and Scott Killinger to approve, making a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Pull up my poll. If you can click your answer and hit submit. Okay, thank you. Okay, on to the next order is our executive board. So we have our slate of officers. Doug Kissel as president, Nick Gornick, vice president, Amy Rees, treasury secretary, and then our members at large, Andrew Hawkins, Forest Preserve, Dina DeHulick with the Conservation Foundation, Randy Jessen with Will County Stormwater Committee, and Ryan Anderson with the Village of Minooka. So can I get a motion to approve the slate? So I got Scott Killinger and Joe Slavnik. All right. Again, click your answer and hit submit. Okay, and that motion also carried. All right, so moving on to our budget. So we are in our third year of our 3-year budget. So there's not a whole lot of changes in general. That's how we can approve the 3-year budget, but annually approve our annual budget. So this is the third year in 3. And just for some of you that may be a little newer to the coalition, the reason why we budget on a 3-year kind of rotation is that's our following our rotation of when we do our stream monitoring. And so to be able to spread out the cost of our monitoring program over 3 years versus having like lower dues for 2 years and then all of a sudden it goes up. So trying to have that consistency in dues. So we base our budget on a 3-year cycle. So we're in our 3rd year, so we'll be doing our sampling this year. So really there was some minor changes in the administration part of the budget. TCF, the Conservation Foundation, made some changes to the way that it budgets and or does it calculates its billing rates. So things in the past that had not been included in that billing rate office related supplies, postage, software that have been in separate parts of our budget are now included in that billing rate. So basically providing professional staff will now cover all of these things and won't be a part of our budget. So pretty much balances out as you move those items from other parts of our budget into that administration line item. And then it pretty much will stay in sync for the next round of budgets. Some of the other things, we will be adding more detail into the project analysis line items as we start looking to develop plans for our next project. So the Hamel Woods Dam removal project was the first project on our list of the special conditions funding for projects. We had 2 projects on that list: removal of the dam and then a large scale in-stream project. So we have the funds budgeted, the $600,000 budgeted for the dam removal project, and then the remaining funds will go into the large scale restoration projects. We'll be working on those details this year. So a little bit more detail throughout the year on that. And then, yeah, I guess, like I said at the beginning there, this is our 3rd year in the budget. So when we calculate, dues remain the same this year as they were last year. For next year, dues will be calculated on what the needs are for the next 3-year budget. So those we'll start those discussions later in this calendar year to move forward for that 3-year budget. So here's the summary of our budget, which was provided in the packet that was sent out. Actually, what was sent out has all the tabs with the different parts of the budget, but this is our summary. So if there are any questions that folks have, you can put them in the Q&A section. If anybody has any questions. And without any questions, if I can get a motion for the budget, to approve the budget. So I have Scott Kellinger made a motion. Can I get a second? I have Joe Slavnik. Here's our final poll for today. So then click your answer and hit submit. All right, thank you. All right, I am going to switch my screen over. And I'm going to turn things over to Amy DeBoni and Jessica Gale from the Village of Plainfield. So just let me know as you want me to move forward on slides.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy DeBoni. I'm with the Village of Plainfield, and Jessica Gall is joining me from our planning department today. And we appreciate you inviting us to share a little bit about our new riverfront plan for the village. We're looking forward to this. Last year, we decided to undertake the development of a new plan. It was time. The current plan that the Village of Plainfield has for the riverfront area was adopted in 2007. So it kind of made sense to revisit the plan, reevaluate it, make sure that our planning was consistent vision for the area. And certainly over time in the last 10 plus years, we've certainly learned more about how the river works in that area, how the property works, that kind of thing. So we better understand the constraints of it. It turned out to be actually a great time to start the plan. With the pandemic, we saw a lot more usage of the river in Plainfield, a lot more people tubing, kayaking, that kind of thing, also using the trails and the riverfront area. So it was a great time to launch and kind of get feedback. We've been working with Two different consulting companies on the master plan, Applied Ecological Services and Housel Levine, since late summer, and we are now in the final stages of developing the plan. We anticipate that our board will be approving the plan in March. We're going to kind of walk you through the different concepts for the different areas of the riverfront. And if you have any questions during the process, please let us know and we'd be happy to answer those. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica now.
And again, if you have any questions, if you want to put them into the Q&A, and then I can share those with Amy and Jessica as we go or at the end of the presentation.
Jess? Can't tell if she lost connection, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I see her picture.
Oh, she's reconnecting.
Okay.
Second to reconnect, maybe.
No problem.
She lost connection, maybe. Jessica, are you on? Okay, there she is. It looks like she is reconnecting now. Okay, looks like I think she's having some technical problems. So I apologize for the delay. I'll kind of just move ahead and then Jessica can join us when she's able to connect again. So when we went out to issue an RFP for this project, we identified a number of goals for the project. And when we were selecting consultant, we focused on a firm that really had experience with riverfront planning, but also a good understanding of the constraints of the property. A lot of the riverfront area in Plainfield is in the floodway or floodplain. Jennifer, if you want to switch slides, we can kind of give an overview. Perfect. And so when we were very fortunate to receive a lot of feedback. As I had touched on earlier, we used a lot of different ways to reach out to the community. We had stakeholder meetings, we did a public survey, we did social media engagement, and with the pandemic, there was a lot more people using the river, so we were very fortunate to get a lot of feedback during the social media engagement and the public survey. What we found through the public outreach is that many of the goals that the village had also matched what the public wanted. They're very interested in trails and connectivity, open space, passive uses of the riverfront. So it's our hope that some of those components of the plan help meet the goals of the Conservation Foundation as well. And we'd like to see how we can foster a partnership between the village and the Conservation Foundation and the Lower DuPage Watershed group. So now we'd kind of like to move into sharing the concepts for the plan. We'll kind of start with the northern section and then move south. So what you see on the screen before you is kind of the northern section of the village's riverfront area. This is actually where our wastewater treatment plant is located. And that will be part of the plan, and we will use that to incorporate some trails. In addition, this will eventually, on the north side, you can see that it will connect to the DuPage River Trail eventually. You also see that to the west of this parcel, we have the railway, which also connects to what we have as our P3 development, a public-private partnership which we have, which it includes our Pace Park and Ride. So there was a lot of feedback from the community that they would like more connectivity to that area. So you'll see that the trail can also connect in that area. And then Jennifer, if you can click to the next slide, that would be great. So again, this is still in the north corridor of our plan. Again, it shows the trail kind of moving south, kind of loops at the top and then comes down into one trail. They have added features like overlooks, which can be fishing areas as well. We have some use of pedestrian walkways. This section also includes a council ring, and we've also made it so that there is handicapped accessibility in different areas of the trails. I'm going to turn it back to Jessica now so she can cover some more sections of the plan as we move south.
I'm hoping you can hear me.
We can.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I don't know what happened. It just completely kicked me out and said webinar over. And I'm like, I don't even know what happened. So yeah, Amy, so sorry. I just want to also thank the members of the Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition we're excited to be here and share kind of the outcome of this plan. The river has historically been a really desirable amenity in the village, as we've seen in other areas. So we're really excited. But Jennifer, if you could move, I think, into the next area. So here is kind of, we call the central section, the plan. And really it kind of improves some of the existing areas, some of the existing impervious areas that we have along the riverfront. So the central plaza, kind of this main, maybe attractive element in this area is on an existing concrete pad that remains from years prior. So it is kind of part of a historic element. So the most activity that we would see at the riverfront, and maybe the most hardscaping, would be in this area. Improved parking areas. We have an existing Countryman Drive, which provides you access into the property. And then I guess the big element here is the trail connection from the northern section on the north side of the bridge to the southern section. So here it is kind of the most active space. So there's different kind of boardwalk overlook areas that are identified, an active pergola area, so where you can have swings or something of that sort. So definitely more geared towards attracting people to the riverfront. But at a different point as well, we have this River Cove area where we're trying to provide that recreational access that a lot of our residents desire. And that is obviously a very important element of riverfront planning, is to actually bring people to the riverfront. Some of the feedback that we received from the public was just their kind of inability to access the riverfront now, whether it's because of kind of non-native species, weeds, everything that's growing along the shoreline that makes it difficult for people to actually access the river and enjoy it. So a lot of improvements in this area, both for aesthetic reasons, but also function. So this is kind of the biggest section here. Some improved parking on the east side of the river as well, maybe a trail connection in the future, but a lot of that activity on the west side, improving a lot of those existing areas and defining some wetland areas as well. So Jennifer, you can move to the next slide. And then, so now we're moving further south along the riverfront. We do have an existing Canine Memorial. So you'll notice there's some improvement to the parking area there and the Canine Memorial in general. And then just a couple of improvements in terms of allowing kind of the water to free flow from different areas of the property, improving that flow of water, which is currently either just not as free flowing or it's kind of obstructed. So taking those steps to kind of improve the type of landscaping and what's planted along the riverfront, just to allow water to pass through freely, and then improving some of these watershed areas as well to act as kind of a resilient barrier to flooding, which we know is going to be occurring often. So we do have a lot of wetland restoration areas. We do have some prairie restoration areas identified in the plan. And a lot of these were, goals of the village, but also some feedback that we got from the public, their desire for a riverfront that is desirable, attractive, but maybe leans a little bit more towards some natural landscaping in lieu of some more programmed spaces. So we did receive a lot of feedback there. And then Countryman Drive does continue along to the south. So now, Jennifer, you can move on to the next one. And I'll hand it over to Amy. I think Amy is.
So as you can see, kind of the northern section, you know, it's much quieter, more focused on the trails, and then the central section has a lot more features and a lot more going on, you know, with the central plaza. As we move to the south, you'll see it kind of, again, it kind of takes a little bit quieter turn, a little bit more passive area. This first south area, first the southern section, you will see there's a little bit of activity here. They've kind of slated an activity zone near this Riverfront Foundation building. This is actually our old control building for our former wastewater treatment plant. That building is still there. So they have our Riverfront Foundation has set up a museum in the building and has it open for the public occasionally. So in that area, we would have some dedicated open space as well as an activity zone, enhancing kind of the entryway there. This is also, as I mentioned, we had a lot of demand for tubers, kayakers, you know, canoers, that kind of thing, more so than usual because of the pandemic, we believe. So we are looking at adding a launch area right here near where there is a pedestrian access bridge. So that we would tie that in and enlarge the parking in this area as well as connect the trails to that area. Again, we do have some handicap accessible areas here, another overlook area, which again can just be used for sitting or fishing. We do have some wetland areas drawn in here, and then we'll see that the trail here is extended through the Springbank Trail. We should have one more slide if you could change slides, Jennifer. Thanks. So you see again, here's where the launch is at the north end, and then we move down into the Springbank Trail. This eventually will connect to one of the Plainfield Park District's properties, Mather Woods, and there's some connectivity to Settlers Park and the trails in Settlers Park as well. But again, in the southern section, similar to the northern section, it's more focused on the trails and much quieter in this area, less programmed areas. So kind of where are we at today with this? As I mentioned, we are, you know, in the final stages of developing the master plan with our consultants. We will be moving forward for board approval in March. As far as what kind of projects are underway right now. The Springbank Trail is actually a developer-led project. So they are working on the permitting of that, and we anticipate that construction of that trail section starting soon. So we're very excited about that. We are also looking at potentially expanding. If you could go back to the previous slide, Jennifer, that would be great. We're also looking at, in the upcoming year, working on this parking area near the Riverfront Foundation building and expanding that parking area so we can work towards, you know, the boat launch concept, because that was so in demand from the community, and they're really looking for that. Right now, for boat launch areas at the riverfront, they're actually using kind of two areas that have just naturally are a little bit lower, and they, you know, find those easy to access. So that's what they're currently using, but they're not really designed for that at this point. So we're looking, you know, at moving forward with that parking area, and then the boat launch after that. In addition, if Jennifer, you could go back to the slide on the central section. You'll see this growth of trees here in the middle. That is actually, yes, thank you for highlighting that. That is actually there's some debris in there that has been in there for years. So we are also looking at having that debris tested to see exactly what's in there and to see how that works, because in that area, obviously we've tied in a river cove and restoration of that area. So we're going to be testing that so we can see what direction we want to go with that project as well. So we actually have a lot of exciting things going on in the area right now. And we kind of want to open it up for your questions and see what people might have to ask us about the plan. But we appreciate this opportunity to share it with you. So let us know, let Jessica and I know what questions you have, and we can get those answered for you.
So I have one question. Was there any discussion about reconstructing the seawall along the river?
So at this point, we really did not talk about reconstructing that seawall. The consultants are recommending kind of going with, restoration along the edge of the river, not going with a reconstructed seawall.
When you said there's debris in that wooded area, is that like trash or is there soil piled up in there? I mean, what's going on in there?
So yeah, we've had some initial phase 1 testing done of the area that didn't show any, it really didn't show anything. It showed that it was harmless. So we're going to proceed with the phase 2 debris testing at this point. What we've been told and what we can visually see at this point is that there's been the dumping that occurred years and years ago. We think it's maybe concrete, maybe some metal, construction debris, and it's been there for years. Yeah. So it's always been a priority to kind of get it cleaned up and that kind of thing. So they did the phase 1 testing a few years ago, and now we're going to proceed with the phase 2 testing.
Great. I don't know if anybody else had any questions, whether in chat or in the Q&A section. Yeah, I'll have to say I was definitely very happy to not see a lot of hardscape along the edge of the river. It's definitely something that we've seen between data collection that we've been doing, as well as work that the DuPage River Salt Creek Work Group has done, and looking at really the importance of having naturalized riparian areas. So even with the trail system, but that you're really looking to convert things into more native landscapes. That helps with providing habitat for wildlife along the sections of the river, as well as with the macroinvertebrates that live, the insects that live in the water. That's their larval stage, but as adults they need that upland habitat along the river corridor. So that's great. And I mean, just engaging people at the river. Obviously, over the last year, I think across our region, seen a whole lot more usage of our rivers, and it really does give people a different perspective, floating down the river versus crossing over on the bridge or even walking along a trail. So yeah, I think overall, I'm so happy to see a lot of the items that you guys have worked into the plan.
Yeah, we were really thrilled with the feedback that we got. We were surprised at the amount of feedback. And again, launching a master plan during the pandemic, you're not sure how that's gonna work out. But we were able to kind of convert everything to virtual, and a virtual open house and virtual stakeholder meetings and everything. And we had great participation from the community. And we really think it was a result of the increased usage during the pandemic and people not going on vacation. So they're doing, things, locally and outdoors. And we saw a huge increase. In addition, we did have a company that approached the village, and they were doing tubing on the river. And so they worked with the Park District and the village and offered that on the properties. So that also caused a huge increase in our area of usage.
There was another question that came up was what funding sources have been identified so far for improvements?
Sure. So our consultants are working on a variety of things. We're looking at grant opportunities. We have a foundation that does fundraising as well, as well as village resources. We're looking at a variety of funding sources at this point.
Very good. If anybody else has any other questions, and of course, if you think of other questions down the road, you can contact Amy or Jessica, or if you send questions to me, I can forward things on to them as well. I'll make sure I'll share a link when we post this stuff, because I know there's a link. All of this plan is available online. If people are interested in looking at it in more detail later. So I'll just make a note here to have a link to the presentation. thank you very much for presenting this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna go back and share my other screen. Okay. All right. So just kind of a quick overview of 2020. So one of the exciting things, as exciting as things get in the financial side of things, we completed our first financial audit this year. I really thank Nancy Sonattle on our staff for pulling all that together and working with the auditor. I think things went relatively smoothly going the first go around. And yeah, so that was definitely a big step forward for us on the accounting side of things. We again completed the MS4 report for all of our activities. We'll be working on the next one to have that done in mid-March, and that'll get sent out to all of our MS4 members. On the outreach side of things, Leah's going to go through kind of the details itself of things that we worked on, but we've been working on adding more information to the website and working to make it easier to find items. We expanded on our seasonal outreach campaigns, so we've been really expanding on the topics. So we've been presenting things seasonally, but we've definitely expanded the number of topics that we're covering by season, wherever it makes sense. Really definitely tying things back to water quality and how how water quality is impacted, or the things that residents can do to help improve or protect water quality in their community, in their yards, etc. But then also we've added in a ecology topic each season, just to again help people learn more about our river and the things that live there, and a little bit more about the why we do what we do. And then also expanding materials on the saltsmart.org website. So Hamel Woods project is still in a bit of a holding pattern. There's nothing from the permitting side. There's no issues that they have with the actual removal of it. Really, what came down to is documenting and how the documentation of the structure would happen. This was not something that had been kind of on the radar, and really came to the Forest Preserve very late in the permit process, that we would have to actually do documentation for the historical register. And in order to do that documentation, water needs to be drawn down. But we're trying to make sure that we can draw down the site only once. So draw it down, take the pictures, and then get the permit, be able to do the removal. Because if we have to draw it down twice, that obviously adds a lot to cost and just the timing of things. So we're close. Andy and Forest Preserve District staff and their consultants have been working very closely with Army Corps and DNR and the Office of Historic Preservation at the state. So those things are slowly moving forward. So at this point, we're really looking at more than likely something in June or July, depending on water levels. So, not being able to work in the frozen conditions right now, and then spring flow conditions tend to get high. So we'll really be looking for, the next low flow conditions. So at the earliest, we'd be looking at later in June. So we'll keep everybody up to date on that. Just turn a few folks off here. Okay. Actually, one other thing I wanted to make mention of, and so Dina has been working with our consultants for the Qual 2K model development. and they're all the information at this point. We were just looking at kind of finalizing the segment breakdown for the lower DuPage, and then they'll be running the calibration run and then looking at what the next set of model runs are. And so it looks like we should have them at our next meeting. I believe it'll be March 18th to do a presentation to go over what those model runs look like and how things are moving forward with that. This summer, we will be going on our next round of our bioassessment, so bioassessment 2021, working with Midwest Biodiversity Institute and Microbac Laboratories. So again, we'll be doing the 41 stations that we have done in the past. So those are main stem stations and tributary stations. This early, I guess, as we get into late winter, early spring, we'll be working on contracts, the final kind of contracts with MBI and Microbac. We'll be reviewing and making any updates that we need to the quality assurance plan, prepping our probes, our dissolved multi-parameter probes for deployment. We do have the probe at Shorewood out currently through the winter. So as long as conditions are safe to continue to have it out in the river, we will keep that river or that probe out. So it'll be kind of the first year we'll actually have continuous chloride or conductivity data throughout the winter. So that one is out and will be out as long as we can keep it out there, but otherwise we will have probes back deployed in the river come May. New this year is our expanded dissolved oxygen monitoring program. So we'll be picking out a number of sites to look at. We'd have the probes in the water for a week-long deployment. And during that deployment, we would collect some additional water chemistry. So an expanded suite of nutrient parameters, both the chlorophyll A in the water column, as well as collecting it from the bottom, so from the substrate, rocks and other debris in the river. We'll be doing some flow monitoring. I think those are the components of that. So we'll have a number of stations that we'll be working on across the watershed. And then we will also be doing some fecal coliform collection to meet MS4, the MS4 side of monitoring. To do this extra field work, last year we brought on Alex Handel on our staff. So he has been maintaining the probes this past year, going out and doing the weekly checks, keeping up with the calibration. So that has been a huge help. And then as we go into our field season this year, he'll be running the fecal coliform program, continuing to do the regular dissolved oxygen program, and then doing the field work. I'll be a part of the field work team for the expanded DO. That process does take a lot more kind of hands-on effort. So I'll be out in the field with that, as well as Dina from our staff. And then we are looking at, between the DRCW, the lower DuPage and the lower Des Plaines watershed groups, we're all doing monitoring this year. So splitting the costs on bringing on 2 summer interns to help out with the field work that we need to get done. And then chemistry collection and the DO probes being out should begin sometime in May, the fish and bug sampling beginning in later June. The expanded DO collection, we really target that for the warmest weather and lowest flow conditions. So that's really targeted in July and August. So we will probably have field staff out for the entire months of July and August, pretty much nonstop. We will look to have all of our fish and bug water chemistry collection completed by the end of September, and then get into sediment sampling in September, October. And somewhere in there, we'll figure out when we get our fecal coliform sampling done. And the fecal coliform sampling, because of the way that the standard works, the water quality standard for fecal coliforms, you need to have 5 samples collected within a 30-day period. So we'll either target to get that done in sort of that May-June time period, Otherwise, somewhere in the September to October period needs to be completed between the beginning of May and the end of October. So we definitely want to get it done outside of that July, August timeframe when really our staff, field staff needs are going to be at their highest. So that's really what we're looking at for bioassessment this year. Again, how the sites are distributed along the main stem and the tributaries. One of the things that Leah and I will be working on for this summer is really just trying to put out more information from the social media aspect on what we're doing in the monitoring program. So when we're getting out there, starting to do, getting the probes out there, getting water chemistry collection started, doing the actual monitoring. So just so we can share information with our members as well as residents in the area of what's going on with the monitoring program this year. And then just kind of tying back to our budgets, we have budgeted $145,000 for MBI's portion of the project, which is all of the field collection, fish, the bugs, habitat evaluations, and then pulling together all of their data, the data that the lab, water chemistry side of things, water and sediment chemistry data. We collect data from the wastewater treatment plants, all of the DMR data that they're required to collect as part of their permit, and put all that together and then go through, developing the report. And then on the lab side, so this would be microbac for the majority of it, but we are also using a local lab to do the fecal coliform samples because of the hold times for those is very short. So it's easier to work with a local lab. Microbac is located in Northwest Indiana, but their staff will be out collecting the water chemistry samples. And then we'll have our staff collecting sediment samples in the fall and getting that over to microbac. So overall, we have a little over 55,500 budgeted for laboratory services. We should have targeted for that March meeting, at least draft contracts for both microbac and MBI for the summer sampling. I'm going to turn things over to Leah to kind of go over where we've been with our seasonal outreach and kind of where things are at for winter right now.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go through our seasonal outreach that we did last year and then focus a little bit on winter, the winter materials that we just made because we're in that season now, and then a little bit of preview for spring. So all these resources can be found on our website. I also send them out each time I create new resources to a communications kind of list. So if you'd like to be on that list and receive emails, maybe like on a quarterly kind of basis, let me know and I'll put you on that. Otherwise, you can go to our members tabs and find them there. So, yep, right there. And so for the spring, topics we talked about were stormwater runoff, which we talk about each season, but what pollutants get brought into the rivers and streams from stormwater runoff changes. So that's a topic we always talk about, but in the spring, we kind of focused on how how residents at home can reduce stormwater runoff from their properties by using rain gardens and rain barrels. So each season we create blog posts on these topics and then also social media graphics, which are like the little squares on the right side, and then always a few additional resources. So this year we made a rain barrel FAQ guide, just common questions homeowners might have about setting up a rain barrel and any concerns with that. Then in the summer, we talked about lawn maintenance and natural lawn maintenance, how to encourage residents to reduce or eliminate their use of fertilizers and pesticides on their lawn and alternatives to that. And then we talked about what makes a stream healthy. It's more than just having clean water. It's about having habitat, so that your fish and bugs have places to live and thrive, and that all together comes together to make a healthy stream. And yeah, we talked, Jennifer said we're focusing more on the ecology part of that, like what's living in our stream, why we're doing all this work. And so in the summer, we talked about the aquatic insects and also about mosquitoes, since that's a concern of a lot of residents in our community. And then also the effect that dams have on the health of streams, and that we should consider dam removal projects. And in the fall, we always focus on fall leaves. And so that's another issue with stormwater runoff and how the extra nutrients, the phosphorus, is brought from the leaves into the storm drains that connect directly to rivers and streams. So we focused on this concept that collecting leaves right before a rain can really reduce the amount of phosphorus that gets into our waterways. And we talked about a case study done in Madison, and they did street sweeping and collected leaves right before a predicted storm and saw that huge decrease in phosphorus. So municipalities can consider doing maybe street sweeping before it rains, or just encouraging residents to make sure to get their leaves off of hard surfaces. And then we like to consider how leaves could be used as a resource. And so one of our blogs was on creating a leaf mold bin, which is where you kind of create a pile or bin full of leaves. You let them to decompose, and then you're left with this really great material that can be used as mulch or incorporated into gardens. And then we also talked about dragonflies for that ecology point. And then the winter, so I'm going to get into more detail on our winter materials.
So one more thing I just wanted to say about fall. So we did the poster in Spanish, and we would love to get some feedback from folks as to whether they find this useful. We're really trying to look at, are there other opportunities or other needs out there for non-English based outreach materials? So if that is something that your community is working on in other areas, we would love some feedback on this or some direction if this is something that people find useful, if communities find this useful. So definitely get in touch with Leah or myself. Just figure out if this is something that we should continue to work on.
Okay, so our winter resources are all housed under the name of SaltSmart, and we have saltsmart.org where all these resources are, and then that's also where our de-icing workshops and other resources are. So this year we focused on anti-icing. So if people are seeing those stripes on the streets right now and wondering what those are, it's good to talk about preventative approach to snow and ice removal, and then also just how salt works. Because if we understand how road salt works and that you don't need to put a ton of salt on streets, sidewalks, and driveways, and having less salt can still be as effective to clearing those surfaces, that's really great to lessen the amount of chlorides that enter our waterways. And then also our ecology part was on where do fish go for the winter. And so those were our topics. We have the social media posts, but we also have other resources. We have a safe driving poster or graphic, and then a snow and ice removal FAQ. So it can be used as that document, or that text can be used to put on your website, newsletter, or just shared with staff so they know that when they get questions from residents, they know some good answers to those. And then also we have a bookmark and a graphic that was adapted from the bookmark for 4 steps to be salt smart. I've seen people incorporate that into newsletters or on their website, so that's also a good tool. And then we also have the physical bookmarks and then salt scatter cups so that you can share with your residents. So if you want those, we have them available. You just need to contact Jennifer or I, and we will get those to you. And then new this year, we have some videos. City of Edina in Minnesota let us use their PSA video. We just adapted the end message to for Illinois streams. And then we have a salt spreader calibration video that's great for public agencies, private contractors, park districts, places like that where they might be using a salt behind spreader to share with their staff so they can get that at the right application rate. And then we did winter de-icing mini webinars, and just wanted to say that those recordings are available at saltsmart.org/workshops and also on our YouTube page. And then our pet waste campaign is still ongoing. So we have these great signs and dog waste bag dispensers that we can provide. If you want to get involved, just let Jennifer or I know, and we'll provide you with a couple signs and a bag waste dispenser and bags. And then your part of that would be installing those signs, sending us a picture, where people are sending us their pictures, and it's great to see them out in the world right now. And then also you'd participate in just a 4-week social media campaign. We have a series of just different social media graphics, photos, just some fun resources to share with residents and start that conversation of reminding residents to scoop the poop to protect our rivers and streams. And then I mean,
just one more thing on this. This type of campaign is actually listed as an action item in the fecal coliform TMDLs. So this is a great way, you know, if your community, and whether it's the community or the park district participates in this, would be, you know, something we would definitely want to be able to report back as, you know, at least a initial step to addressing potential sources of fecal coliform. So yeah, please, you know, share this with, you know, staff at your community for interest or with your park district. I've been reaching out to folks individually. We would definitely like to expand the participation on this. And we will have these signs. We have those signs available. We also have them available for purchase. So as part of the program, we have two signs. If this is something that you're really interested in expanding, you know, throughout maybe your park system, we have additional signs that we can make available for $25 each.
And
right.
We're planning on kind of having a coordinated social media campaign, trying to get people posting together these same consistent messages again in May. So I'll definitely be reaching out to everyone about that again in a few months. And I'm also working, or I just sent out the spring materials because we're trying to get ahead of the season. So when you're planning your newsletters and social media campaigns, all that. So the spring materials were just sent out to the list of folks I have, but they're also on our website. And then if you want, always encourage you to follow us on Facebook so you can just see examples about how we're using these social media posts.
And Leah, can you just real quick overview of what we have available for spring?
Yes, on spring, we have some more resources about native plants, and we're going to have like a step-by-step journey of replanting a garden bed with native plants. And there is that water quality connection because native plants help infiltrate water into the ground instead of having it run off. And then we also talk more about rain gardens. And then our ecology part is on freshwater mussels that are really important in filtering water in streams and rivers. So we have blog posts, social media posts, and then there are webinars too on each topic.
Cool. Yeah, so if you have any questions about any of the materials, if you have ideas for, you know, as we're we're actually getting started on our summer materials already. One of the things we are planning for summer is to put together some materials around kind of responsible river recreation. I know with the really increased number of folks using the river this year, paddling and floating down the river. It definitely sparked a little bit of maybe some controversy in some areas and people's, some people just not being very responsible on the river. And so we'll definitely be reaching out to communities to get some input on that, but to put some kind of a response from the Watershed group on, here's some things that you can share with your residents about, we want people to get out on the river. We want people to enjoy the river. And here's some ways to do that in a responsible manner. But again, any kind of customization, if you have other ideas, please reach out to Leah on that. So I believe that is the end of what we have planned for today's meeting. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything else that they'd like to share with the group, you can put that in the Q&A. I can turn your speaker on if you would like. Our next meeting is on March 18th, here again on Zoom at 10 o'clock. All right. Well, I don't see any questions or comments. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Wish everybody a happy new year as we start off on a really nice, bright summer day or sunny day for our first meeting. And we'll see everybody in March. Thank you.